Hi everyone, it's Jerry. I have a nice positional game to share with you from round 5 of the 2025 FIDE World Cup. This was played today, November 14th. On the white end, Javokhir Sindarov playing against Frederik Svane. Alright, this is game 1 of 2, classical time controls. We have an Italian game with move 4, d3, and bishop c5. So both bad bishops actively posted outside of the pawn chain. c3 paves the way for queenside expansion. Same side's castles game. d6, queenside expansion, ready to trap the bishop, not happening at this level. Space for white. Space with or without advantage remains to be seen. Knight has to find a new home. Drifting towards the king side, eyeing f4. And now move 11, d4. This is where there's a big fight in this game, in the center. This tension remains for some time, not released until move 28. Neither side willing to bite. More development, pinned knight, unpinned, queen d7, rook e1, and from here, rook a to e8. After rook a to e8, bishop a3 is played, and there's a pinned pawn, pinned to a rook that doesn't have a legal move. Sort of uncomfortable. With that arrangement, black can't forget about any lines connected with a d5 strike to influence white's center. If the other rook played to e8 here, computer says that this is fine. f7 is a bit more sensitive, but going after it would not be a good idea. Knight g5 can be met well with d5. Keep in mind, knight g5 leaves the rook hanging. White, a bit more tactically vulnerable there. Black is well equipped to stir up trouble in the center, has a healthy development in that position. Now let's just say this was played and white continued here with bishop a3 or b2 supporting the center. In both cases, a good reply here is d5, with a point being, after e takes d, there's bishop f5. And if the queen now moves, e4, and this knight experiences a problem. It doesn't have a single retreat, and moving in the forward, there aren't so many great options in the forward. It says you would have to block like this, fight for this e4 square, and from here, knight f4, or even simply collecting the pawn, and things are cool there. Black is successful with breaking up white's center with such a line. Do know with queen captures d5, there's no fear of this pawn rushing up to c5. c4 can be met with queen d7, and c5 is a blunder. There's a pin on the d file. Anyhow, black ends up playing in this position the queen rook to e8, bishop a3, pinned pawn, knight f4, tamed by the bishop, bishop for knight exchange, queen g4. All right, there's a pin. Knight h3 ideas are maybe in the air. King h1, unpinned. Knight h3 still played here. Pawn takes, queen takes, knight. Okay. White steps up on e3. Knight secure. Now you're ready to go. No time for this. You take the knight and you're on the queen. From here, knight g5. And pop quiz here. What move do you think white plays? Pause the video if you'd like. Okay, there isn't some flashy tactic here. In this positional game, a game of inches. Computer says you could capture the knight straight away, or first include h3. I like the idea of inserting h3 here. You're going to need a flight square at some stage, and this seems like an appropriate moment to go for this. Why not? A valuable tempo. The queen moves, and only now. Playing knight captures knight. You got your flight square in there. d4 now supported. Queen g6. e4 coming into focus here. Black ready for a timely capture, and then crashing through on e4. Okay, some support now by the light square bishop. Follow-up is knight h5. Now, the computer says a better move is queen h6, and then it's pointing out bishop c1 there, possible discoveries in the air. What's the story in this position right here, rather than the move in the game, knight h5? What happens if black takes on d4? You can recapture. And here's the thing, if black takes on d4, it's met with e5. And there's this double attack. Queen moves, you take the knight. Bishop takes, rook. You could take on g6 first, and then collect the bishop. Two bishops will be outweighing the rook there. Okay, not a good idea to release the tension here, chopping away on d4. Knight h5. Follow up g3. No f4 square allowed for the knight. And from here we have rook e7. If we revisit this capture, it is still no good for black. In this position, there would yet again be e5. Even if it is not hitting the knight in this case, it is still best. The idea here is to follow up with bishop captures h7. And after these exchanges, white is coming out on top. This is winning. Not having a fun time. This knight over here, there's still an awkward pin on d6. There's a couple ways it can be resolved here. If pawn takes, there's rook h4. Rook is hit. Knight is hit. White will be winning material shortly. And it's the same story if we play it like this with a pair of rooks exchanged. Two problems, no solve. Okay. Black's reply. At this stage right here, after g3, rook e7. It says best from here, rook f3. Okay, white's approach is to defend d4 directly at this stage. Bishop b2. Doubled up on the e-file for both rooks. Queen f6. King g2. Playing king g2 earlier, you are in a pin there. So as soon as the queen moves, nice healthy move to get in there. King g2 is cool. Follow up queen e6, rook f3, knight f6, and finally, the tension is resolved. We have here pawn captures pawn. Pop quiz. How would you respond here? Pause the video if you'd like. Okay, top move here, move in the game, knight d7. Now, what's wrong with capturing on e5? Let's examine each. First, queen captures, there'd be c4, problem on e5 and f6. If the bishop tries to block here, that runs into rook f5. Queen backs off, you drop a full piece. It says best here is to give up the queen and get the rook and dark square bishop in return. That's a winning position for white. So this is a reason why we're not seeing queen captures pawn. What's the story if pawn captures pawn? Well, first of all, these pieces are no longer so excited about being on the e-file, closed file, and this square can no longer be made use of by any black piece. Computer really likes this position for white. Here are a couple moves, a couple of ways it's looking to rearrange the pieces from here. Setting up bishop c4, this is going to be a fantastic diagonal. This is going to be a sore spot for black here. Queen b3 in this position, you could still play bishop c4. The a pawn is poison. Queen would be trapped. Let's put on a few moves here. This is what the computer's looking at. A position like this is reminding me of Leela Chess Zero games. The arrangement in particular with the bishops controlling these entry points. There are no good entry points here for these rooks. You're on an open file, you're doubled up, who cares? There's more exciting stuff going on here, namely this g4, g5 idea This is a busted position for black. There's no holding things up. White will be pushing through. Very dangerous setup. Winning idea here. So that's how important this moment is in the game after the capture on e5. The knight goes to d7. It's the knight that's really excited here about hopping into e5. It's going to hit a lot of stuff. This rook on f3 starts to feel a bit uncomfortable here. Doesn't have access to e3, and these two light squares, f3 and d3, are soon to be taken away. Now there's a cost connected with this. A pawn in this case. White is up a pawn. Follow up, rook f4, knight e5, rook d1, rook d7, bishop e2, pair of rooks off, bishop relocating, goes back home, queen e6, nearby knight g6, and black is ready to crash through and get that material back. The rook eventually will be kicked from defending e4. From here, white plays h4. Now, if white tries to hang on to this pawn, this is very dangerous to play in this way. Ill-advised to play f3 here. Still with these two major pieces on, weakening your second rank like this, extending the scope of the bishop. Very risky. Also, this rook is now a bit more stuck. Is it ever getting back into the game? I mean, after a healthy move like g6, what are its good moves? Okay, not a good idea to play f3 here. White's approach is to simply give that pawn back and play a two bishops ending. Two bishops versus bishop knight ending. Let's see what this looks like. We have h4, knight g6, and from here rook f5. If rook g4, there's h5, and eventually the rook will be kicked from defending this point. So rook f5 here. Queen takes pawn. Queen takes queen. Rook takes queen. Bishop f3. Pause the video. What is your move here? Okay. Best move in the game. Rook e5. Now, if you take on a4 here, a very strong move is not to take the pawn, but instead key in on f7. And this is a big problem. Knight e7, you could take the pawn with check, save the rook next. It's a winning position for white. How else are you going to defend this now pinned pawn? Okay, this would be a very sad move to play. You're in big trouble here if you're playing such moves. Rook e5 is a winning idea. Mate in one threat, and how you handling that? You're going to create a flight square. It'll be immediately taken away. You want to go with another flight square? Here's a funny line. You could back this bishop off to b3. When you see the ground these bishops can cover, this is just one small example. It's your only safe square. And after bishop here, this is your only safe square, but temporarily, in this position, there's now a check, and the rook will soon fall. These bishops here are wicked. Okay, my point, it is not a good idea to allow white to converge on f7. So this rook needs to be challenged in the game. Rook e5, rook g5. It says you could already just go ahead and initiate the exchange, but rook g5, another top move. h6, okay, only now. There's the rook exchange. Why that subtlety exactly? Why is white encouraging this h6 move and only then initiating the exchange? A train of thought might be, you know what, in this minor piece specific ending, playing here as white, I would prefer your pawns to be on the same diagonal. Maybe there are Pac-Man continuations where, bishop is here and you're taking pawns consecutively. If it's a rook type ending, you would maybe in plenty of cases want them to be positioned on a diagonal so that the rook cannot collect them one after the other. Anyhow, just some food for thought there. All right, only after encouraging h6 do we have the rook exchange. Bishop under fire here. Another pop quiz. How would you respond? Pause the video if you'd like. Okay, b7 is not picked up here. We have instead bishop e4. Remains about an equal position after bishop e4. If white swipes the b pawn, the knight has access to d3. This is a very disruptive move, hitting the bishop and f2. And what do you do about that? If you play bishop e3, you would be losing. There would be a bishop exchange, knight c5, a pawn falls. It says that's a winning position for black. Very dangerous. Passer there. Knight a very good blockader of these pawns, the c pawn. So that wouldn't be a good approach if the knight is on d3 to play bishop e3. And if you play to this a3 square, there is bishop c5 here. This forces an exchange. Might look something like this, where we play an opposite color bishop position. White's up a pawn, but this is considered drawn. Okay. What we have in this game, some restraint, some defense over the knight jump. Follow up h5, f3, g6, king f1. Eventually this will be a serious threat. So king e2, no more jumps, you're ready to go. Knight reposition, knight d7, g4, knight f6. Computer's saying better is to stick around on the queen side. Knight c5, bishop c2, and from there it's looking at f5. Bishop restricted there. A pawn can fall if white is crashing through on f5 in that position. All right, the knight drifts towards the king side. Bishop captures b7 now. H takes g. And no capture straight away. Knight unprotected. Some pressure on it straight away. Knight d7. Pawn captures pawn. Knight c5. Got the fork there. Bishop c6. Knight captures pawn. And bishop f6. A position like this really draws our attention to the strength of the bishops. They are definitely functioning like bishops. You really can't say enough about them. They're blockading a couple pawns, watching over a pawn, watching over a potential passed pawn, watching over that promotion square once moved. Anything more? Yes. It's the end game. Doesn't black know that the king is supposed to be moving towards the center in this ending? He, of course, knows that. But the bishops are not allowing it. Look at the ground they cover. This pawn can't move, even if you step over where you go next. These bishops are keeping the king out of the ballgame. The white king is going to play a much more active role here. Also, what you always have to be watchful of here is a possible passed pawn. These bishops can cover every pawn advance here along the h-file. White is in control in this position. Very difficult to play here as black. We have bishop c5, king improvement, knight b6, king d3, a pawn running. White is there in time. Black stumbles here. Ends up going with this idea of bishop f8, getting on the main diagonal. At the top, the computer points out a2. If king b2, c4 hangs, and if king b3, this is a resource, trying to deflect the bishop from guarding a1 equals queen. With this line, the h-pawn falls. This one, poison. There's yet again a deflection idea here. Okay, from this point, it's looking at bishop b2, knight c8, and then collecting the pawn. It remains a difficult ending there for black. All right, this top line not found by black. We have here bishop f8, king b3, bishop g7, c7 attacked, defended, Knight attacked, it moves forward. You're on c5 here, knight poison, the a pawn will queen. c5 covered, and from here, king g7 is played. Now it remains difficult, if not impossible, for this king to play an active role in this ending. These bishops continue to bother the king. So if you try to open up a square for the king like this, it's immediately hit with the check, and after the king moves, now you can take the knight. Bishop covering a2. So the king is still stuck here. Also, if black tries to go in for this c5 point with bishop d4, b6 is winning. Discovered attack on the knight. If we examine the captures on c5 here, you take the knight, and then the pawn you'll be promoting next. And if black takes with the bishop here, you could ignore this tension and just take on c7 straight away. Knight b6 hangs the bishop. Okay, how it's playing out here after bishop e7 covering c5, king g7, king captures a, and from here it's going to be simple enough. The bishop's dominating, white up a clean pawn, active king, b6, past b pawn, knight continues to struggle, going after another pawn here. This is the story of the ending. White king played a role, black king never played a role. Bishop g3, bishop takes f5, knight h4, bishop e4. We're effectively looking at a dark square bishop ending here. Light square bishop offsetting the knight. Knight g6 played here, and after bishop captures knight, black resigns. If the game continued, white will be queening shortly. It might look something like this, b7, and next up, there's bishop d6, and then promotion. If black plays bishop b8, you're still playing to d6, and this is a very short diagonal here for the bishop. A winning path is just to give the bishop a nudge, just attack it, and white is winning there. So something like this. You'll be promoting soon enough. Okay, this was a very nice game. Positional throughout, and a very nice end game play here with these two monster bishops. Anyhow, your thoughts with this one, feel free as usual to leave any feedback to this video in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed it and maybe took a thing or two away. That's all for now. Take care.